A rice fortification program is not complete without one very essential component: monitoring. Yes, starting a rice fortification program is a great accomplishment. However, without a commitment to monitoring, it is impossible for country leaders to confirm successful, broad-reaching program implementation. When the multi-sector alliance comes together to discuss the establishment of a fortification program, they should, as part of the development process, prepare a monitoring plan. Therefore, in this module, we will cover the following topics: the importance of crafting a monitoring plan for your country's rice fortification program, and the minimum components to be included in the monitoring plan. Allow me to share an experience with you from the Solomon Islands, which is located in the South Pacific. First, some background. The Solomon Islands has legislation making wheat flour and salt fortification mandatory, and is considering the same for rice as well. Most of the wheat flour is produced by one milling company. Most of the rice and salt is imported into the country. The Environmental Health Division of the Ministry of Health and Medical Services, MHMS, is responsible for monitoring the safety of the food supply. We saw earlier a photograph of the multi-sector alliance that oversees the fortification program. That alliance is called the Food Fortification National Committee. A 2-page monitoring plan was drafted and approved by the Food Fortification National Committee. Part of the document is copied here. You can also review it in the resources section of this module. The plan states that there will be 3 components to fortification monitoring on the Solomon Islands: internal monitoring by the wheat mill and any wheat mills built in the future, external monitoring of all wheat mills by the Environmental Health Division of the Ministry of Health, and monitoring of imported rice and salt by a few entities: the Environmental Health Division of the Ministry of Health, Customs, and Quarantine. An important guiding principle in this work is that the fortification monitoring protocols will be integrated into the country's existing food safety monitoring protocols. Each country's monitoring plan will be unique. However, to get you started, here are some recommended components of a monitoring plan. A recap of the goals and objectives of the country's fortification program and how monitoring helps meet these. While this is not technical, it does serve to motivate those who work in fortification monitoring. Identification of a few key indicators to quickly determine if the program is going in the right direction. The monitoring activities that will be conducted prior to initiating food fortification, and then once the program is more mature, on an ongoing basis. And finally, considerations on how and with what frequency monitoring results will be disseminated. We will discuss each of these in turn. Here, we have an example of how the goals and objectives of a fortification program are specified. This document is from the Food Standards Organization of Australia and New Zealand. The goal of mandatory folic acid fortification in Australia is to provide additional protection against neural tube defects. And the specific objective is to reduce the number of pregnancies affected by neural tube defects up to 14% each year in Australia. How will you know if the fortification program is progressing satisfactorily? The use of indicators can help with that. What exactly are indicators? They are specific factors that can be assessed or measured to describe the characteristics of a fortification program, and to allow program managers to gauge progress toward achieving the program objectives. Here, you see some example indicators pertaining to the 4 types of monitoring in this course. Let's say your country engages in commercial monitoring activities. As part of an annual report of the fortification program, the following indicator is included: percent of fortified rice brands that complied with the quantitative specifications of the fortification standard during the calendar year. If the result is low, that is a warning sign to the multi-sector alliance and government officials that the fortification processes at the relevant mills are likely faulty. The WHO, together with the CDC, developed an e-catalog of indicators for micronutrient programs. You can find these at the WHO website shown on the slide. There are approximately 20 options for flour fortification, which are available by clicking on the tab List of Indicators. Most can be adapted for use with rice fortification programs as well. The multi-sector alliance in your country should select a limited number of indicators to adapt and use. Trying to track all 20 is unrealistic and will result in poor data quality. Many monitoring activities need to be undertaken before fortification begins, and then continuously throughout the life of the program. This slide presents some of these. For example, prior to fortification starting, you must train millers and government inspectors in how to monitor rice fortification. To ensure the long-term sustainability of monitoring activities by government inspectors, you should integrate regulatory monitoring activities into the food quality and safety protocols that inspectors currently follow. It is also helpful to map the roles and responsibilities of all parties involved in monitoring. In the Solomon Islands experience, for example, the Environmental Health Division of the Ministry of Health and Medical Services, Customs, and Quarantine will each monitor some aspect of the fortified foods imported into the country. Since 3 entities will be involved, it is important to clearly define the roles of each to avoid duplication of efforts on one hand, or a lack of enforcement on the other hand. As part of active programs, refresher training should be periodically hosted for new and existing millers and inspectors. Another key activity is for the multi-sector alliance, or a committee of that alliance, to meet every 6 months to compile and review the monitoring information gathered. This information must then be used to make adjustments that will improve the program. For each activity in the monitoring plan, the multi-sector alliance should discuss roles and responsibilities, how the activity will be completed, the frequency of the activity, and the resources required. If the activity needs to be completed before fortification can commence, next steps should also be discussed. If the activity will be ongoing, the alliance members also need to consider where the collected data will be sent. Let's take a look at a pre-fortification example. The activity is integrate monitoring activities into existing food quality and safety protocols. The Food Control Authority and the Customs Agency of the country will be in charge of this activity. Staff tasked with this assignment will meet within their respective agencies and conduct bilateral meetings as needed. Activity progress updates will be provided during each multi-sector alliance meeting, which will take place approximately every 3 months. The regulatory monitoring procedures should be fully integrated into existing food quality and safety protocols after 6 months. Signatory approval by representatives of the Food Control Authority and the Customs Agency will likely be required thereafter to adopt the amendments. This second example covers an ongoing activity. Conduct audit at each mill that participates in the rice fortification program. The Food Control Authority inspectors are responsible for the audits, which are guided by the fortification audit checklist. The audit is conducted at all mills expected to fortify at least once every 6 to 12 months. Collected data are shared with the Central Collection Center for the Fortification Program, the Food Control Authority, and the respective mills. A quick note about the Central Collection Center for the Fortification Program. The entity selected to host the center, such as a government ministry, should keep copies of all critical records, reports, and house a database in which all monitoring data is collated. Designated employees then analyze this information on a predetermined regular schedule. The last element of a monitoring plan is dissemination of data results. As an example, the Chilean Public Health Institute publishes annually on its website the results from external and import monitoring of wheat flour fortification. Flour samples are quantitatively tested for 4 nutrients: thiamine, riboflavin, folic acid, and iron. In the interest of space, only 2 nutrients are shown. The number and percentage of samples that meet the specifications of the fortification standard are noted in the report. A copy of this Spanish language report is in the resources section of this module. That concludes the module about planning for monitoring. Remember, the primary elements of a monitoring plan include goals and objectives, key indicators, monitoring activities, and dissemination of results. In the next module, we'll cover 3 key topics related to monitoring: fortification standards, fortification inputs, and laboratories.